You do it almost every night. You reach for the switch, you flip it, and the room vanishes. For a fraction of a second before your eyes adjust, you are completely blind. And in that half second, something in you tightens. Maybe you walk a little faster to the bed. Maybe you don't let your foot dangle over the edge. Maybe, if you're honest, there is a small childish part of you that still believes something could be under there. You are an adult. You know there is nothing in the room. You were standing in it 10 seconds ago. So why does the dark still do this to you? Here is the strange part. You are not actually afraid of the dark. Darkness is just the absence of light. It has no teeth. It cannot hurt you. What you are really afraid of is what the darkness might be hiding. And that specific fear is not a personal weakness, not a childish leftover, not something you failed to grow out of. It is one of the oldest and most successful survival programs ever written into a living thing. It kept your ancestors alive for millions of years. And tonight, when you flinch at a dark hallway, that program is still running. Let's start with your eyes because everything begins there. You are a daytime animal, a diurnal creature. Almost everything about your body is optimized for the sun. Your eyes are built around cone cells, the receptors that handle color and detail and sharpness, and cones need light to work. Lots of it. In bright daylight, you are one of the most visually capable animals on the planet. You can read a facial expression across a room. You can spot a single ripe fruit in a tangle of green leaves. You can recognize a friend waving from 100 meters away. Now turn off the sun. In the dark, your cones go nearly useless. You fall back on rod cells which detect motion and dim shapes, but almost no color and almost no detail. Your vision collapses into a smeared, grainy, low-resolution version of the world. And vision is not just one of your senses. It is the sense your entire brain is built around. Roughly a third of your cerebral cortex is involved in processing what you see. You are, more than almost any other creature alive, a visual animal living in a visual world. So when the light goes out, you do not just lose a little information. You lose your dominant way of understanding reality. You are dropped instantly into a world your brain was never designed to navigate. And your brain knows it. It gets worse because the recovery is slow. When you are plunged into darkness, your rods do not switch on immediately. Full dark adaptation, the process of your eyes squeezing every last drop of sensitivity out of the gloom, takes around 20 to 30 minutes. 20 to 30 minutes of near blindness before you can see even faint shapes. For most of human history, that was a fatal amount of time. And here is the cruel asymmetry at the center of this whole story. The things that hunted your ancestors did not have this problem. Cats, the great predators of the ancient world, have a mirror-like layer behind their retinas called the tapetum lucidum. It bounces light back through the eye, giving them a second chance to catch every photon. It is why a cat's eyes flash in headlights. It is why a leopard can move through near-total darkness as if a soft lamp were following it. You have no such mirror, so in the dark the math is simple and horrifying. The predator can see you. You cannot see the predator, which raises the real question. Why would evolution build an animal that is helpless for half of every single day? The answer is that for most of your history, you did not try to win the night. You hid from it. Picture one of your distant ancestors. Not quite a human, something earlier. Small, upright, clever, walking the grasslands of Africa 2 or 3 million years ago. During the day, that ancestor was doing fine. Good eyes, a sharp mind, a group watching its back. But when the sun went down, the entire balance of power on the savannah flipped. Because the things that hunted your ancestors did their best work in the dark. Lions, hyenas, and above all, leopards. Almost every major predator of the ancient world is what biologists call crepuscular or nocturnal. They are most active at dawn, at dusk, and through the long middle of the night. They have the eyes for it. You do not. To a leopard, a human in the dark is not a fearsome rival. It is a slow, soft, nearly blind package of meat that has helpfully stopped moving. This is not a guess. We have the bones. In the 1970s and 80s, a South African paleontologist named C.K. Brain studied a cave called Swartkrans, packed with the fossilized remains of early hominins. For decades, people had assumed those bones meant our ancestors were mighty hunters, dragging their kills back to a lair. Brain looked closer. He noticed something chilling. Many of the hominin skulls had matching pairs of holes punched into them. He measured those holes. Then he measured the lower canine teeth of a leopard. They fit. Exactly. Those early humans had not carried prey into the cave. They were the prey. A leopard had been hauling them up into the trees to eat in peace and dropping the leftovers into the dark below. Brain wrote a famous book about what he found, and he gave it a title that says everything. He called it The Hunters or the Hunted. For a very, very long time, the answer was hunted. There is an even older and stranger case. The Taung Child, a fossil of a young hominin discovered in 1924, is one of the most famous skulls in the entire human story. For decades, nobody knew how the child died. Then researchers, including Lee Berger and Ron Clark, examined the damage around the eye sockets and the base of the skull, and compared it to the kills made by large modern birds of prey. The marks matched the talons of an eagle. A creature ancestral to you was most likely snatched out of the world from above by a bird. So sit with that for a moment. Your family tree is not a proud line of unstoppable apex predators. For most of it, you were food. And the most dangerous hours, the hours when the leopards woke and your useless eyes shut down, were the hours of the dark. Now, evolution is brutally simple about this kind of thing. Imagine two early humans. The first feels nothing when night falls. The dark does not bother her. She wanders from the group, sleeps in the open, strolls over to investigate the interesting rustling in the bushes. The second feels a cold spike of dread the instant the light fades. She crowds in close to the others. She freezes at strange sounds. She refuses to go anywhere alone after dark, and she keeps the fire between herself and the black. Which one becomes your ancestor? The fearless one gets eaten. Her fearlessness dies in the dark with her. The frightened one survives the night and the next night and lives long enough to have children. And she passes that dread down, not as a lesson, as an instinct. Repeat that across 100,000 generations, and you get an animal that is born already afraid of the dark before anyone teaches it a thing. The fear is not learned, it is inherited. It is standard equipment installed at the factory. Which brings us to what is actually happening inside your head when the lights go out. Deep in your brain sit two small almond-shaped clusters called the amygdala. This is your threat detection system, your built-in alarm, and it is fast, far faster than your conscious thoughts. The amygdala does not wait for proof. It runs on a single ruthless rule, and that rule explains almost everything about the fear of the dark. The rule is this: it is always better to be wrong than to be dead. Think about the gamble your ancestors faced every night without ever knowing they were making it. You hear a rustle in the dark. There are two possibilities. It is the wind or it is a leopard. And there are two ways you can react. You can panic or you can stay calm. If you panic and it was only the wind, the cost is almost nothing. You feel a little silly. Your heart pounds for no reason. That is the whole price. But if you stay calm and it was a leopard, the cost is your entire future and every descendant you would ever have had, erased in a single quiet moment. The two mistakes are not equal. One is embarrassing. The other is final. Scientists call this error management theory, an idea developed by researchers like Marty Hasselton and David Buss. Others describe it as the smoke detector principle, a phrase from the evolutionary biologist Randolph Nesse. A smoke detector that occasionally shrieks at your burnt toast is annoying. A smoke detector that stays politely silent during an actual fire is useless, and so are you. So evolution built you to be a screaming smoke detector. In the dark, your brain assumes the worst, every single time, on purpose. The false alarms are simply the price you pay for never once missing the real thing. This is why your imagination turns against you the moment the light dies. With your eyes starved of real information, your brain refuses to leave the gaps blank. It fills them in. That pile of clothes on the chair becomes a hunched figure. The coat hanging on the door becomes a person standing very, very still. A random smear of shadow resolves, horribly, into a face. This is a real and well-documented phenomenon called pareidolia. Your brain's relentless habit of finding meaning, and especially faces, in pure noise. During the day it is harmless, even fun. In the dark, with your threat system already screaming, it becomes a haunted house generator running inside your own skull, and it does not stop at your eyes. Notice what happens to your hearing at night. Every creak of the house, every tick of the cooling walls, every distant car suddenly sounds enormous and significant. Your brain has lost its main sense, so it cranks up the others and sweeps the darkness for danger with everything it has left. You are not imagining that the night is louder. Your nervous system has turned up the volume deliberately. There is a beautiful piece of evidence for how deep this goes. A researcher named Christian Grayon, working at the National Institute of Mental Health, has spent years studying the human startle reflex, that involuntary jump you make at a sudden noise. He found something remarkable. When people are placed in darkness, with no threat present at all, nothing happening, just the dark, the startle reflex gets measurably stronger. Simply removing the light makes you jumpier, more anxious, more primed to flinch. The darkness itself, with absolutely nothing in it, shifts your entire nervous system up into a higher state of alert. You do not need a monster. The dark is enough. So if you have ever felt your whole body clench at a noise in a dark room and thought, "What is wrong with me?" the answer is nothing. Your startle system is doing precisely what it spent 2 million years learning to do. And then there is the strangest sensation of all, the feeling of being watched. You have had it. Standing in a dark room or walking a black stretch of road, suddenly certain that something is behind you, something has its eyes on you, even though you cannot see a thing and you have no reason to believe it. That feeling is not a ghost. It is the same ancient system running flat out. In low light, your peripheral vision, the edges of your sight, becomes more sensitive to movement than the center. Your brain is desperately monitoring everything just outside your focus, and when it cannot confirm that the dark is empty, it does not assume safety. It assumes a watcher. Because for your ancestors, the assumption of a watcher was the one that kept you alive. For most of human history, you had exactly one weapon against all of this: fire. When your ancestors finally gained control of fire, somewhere in the deep past, it changed everything about the night. Fire gave warmth, yes, and cooked food, but its greatest gift was a wall, a circle of light, a boundary between you and the black. Most large predators will not cross into firelight, not because the flames physically stop them, but because they evolved to hunt in darkness, and an open fire is an anomaly, a disruption, a thing that should not be there. So your ancestors gathered around it. They put their backs to the rock and the fire to the front, and for the first time in the long story of being hunted, they could exhale. The campfire was not just a cooking pit. It was the first safe room. It was the original nightlight. And you are descended entirely from the people who chose to sit inside the ring of light rather than wander out into the dark. Now let's talk about children, because this is where the fear shows its true face. Almost every child in every culture, on every continent, goes through a phase of being afraid of the dark. It tends to arrive around the age of 2 or 3 and peak in the years that follow. Parents often find this baffling. The child has never been attacked. There is no leopard. There has never been a leopard anywhere in their safe, modern, padded little life. So where does the terror actually come from? It comes from before them. The fear is not built out of the child's experience, because the child has almost none. It is pre-installed, waiting, switching on at roughly the age when an ancient child would have first begun wandering far enough from its mother to get into real trouble after dark. The monster under the bed is not a failure of a child's logic. It is the ghost of a leopard, handed down across more years than that child could ever begin to comprehend, wearing whatever costume the child's imagination happens to give it. And here is the part nobody tells you. You never fully grow out of it. You just get better at managing it. You learn that the noise was the radiator. You learn to talk yourself down off the ledge. But the worrying is still there, underneath all of it, and it will happily come back online the moment the conditions are right. Get lost in a forest after sunset. Walk through an unfamiliar house during a power cut. Wake at 3 in the morning, certain with no evidence at all that you are not alone in the room. The child who was afraid of the dark never actually left. You just built a taller, calmer, more reasonable adult on top of him. The adult talks a good game. The child still feels the cold. There is even a link to how you sleep. Researchers, including Colleen Carney at Ryerson University, have found that adults who struggle with insomnia are far more likely than good sleepers to be afraid of the dark and to show that same heightened startle response when the lights go out. Think about how strange that is. The bedroom, the one place you are supposed to feel safest, is also the place where you are most completely exposed, lying down, eyes closed, unconscious, defenseless, in the dark, for hours. Of course, some watchful part of your brain refuses to stand down. It has been standing guard over sleeping humans for 2 million years, and it does not trust your alarm system or your locked front door for a second. Now look around at the modern world and notice how much of it is quietly shaped by this one ancient fear. Why do so many adults, not just children, sleep with a hallway light on or a soft glow in the corner and feel a little embarrassed admitting it? Why is the single most reliable trick in every horror film simply to take away the light and make you wait? Filmmakers do not need to show you the monster. They just turn off the lamp and let the silence stretch because they know your own brain will build something far worse than anything they could ever put on screen. Why? When you flip off the basement light at the bottom of the stairs, is there a sudden, undignified urge to get up those steps a little faster than is strictly necessary? You know nothing is chasing you. Your legs respectfully disagree. It even reaches into water. That cold dread you feel swimming over a deep, dark drop-off in the ocean or in a black lake where you cannot see the bottom is the very same machinery. Unknown space, hidden depth. Something could be down there, and you would never see it coming. The dark and the deep press the exact same button. And consider the biggest evidence of all. Humanity has spent an enormous portion of its entire existence fighting the dark. The campfire, the torch, the oil lamp, the candle, the gas lamp, the light bulb, the glowing, sleepless, electric city. We have lit up the surface of the whole planet so thoroughly that most people alive today can no longer see the stars from their own homes. We tell ourselves this is about convenience, about work, about productivity. But underneath all of that is something far older and far simpler. We are the animal that was hunted in the dark, and we have spent 100,000 years quietly, relentlessly refusing to be hunted again. The bright world you live in is a monument to a fear you can still feel in your own chest. So, you go to bed tonight, you reach for the switch, you flip it, and the room vanishes. That tightening in your body, that small flicker of dread, that childish instinct to get to safety before something in the black can reach you. It is not a flaw. It is not immaturity. It is a gift handed down from a long line of frightened ancestors who lived precisely because they were afraid, who crowded toward the fire, who refused to wander into the dark, who survived the leopard and the eagle in the long predatory night and passed their caution down, generation after generation after generation, all the way to you. You are not afraid of the dark. You are remembering what used to be in it. And if you felt that, if it rearranged something, even a little, then you are exactly the kind of person this channel is for. Every week I take one strange, true thing about being human and draw it out simply. So subscribe and stick around. And tonight, when you reach for that switch, maybe leave the light on a second longer. I'll see you in the next one.